5 points that I think that it can form the framework for having this conversation. The first framework I identify has to do with power. It is about our awareness of the power we have as young people. Because does ordinary Ghanaian youth realize how much power he or she has? I think that this is a fact that has eluded many of us young people. We feel we have no power. We feel there is nothing we can do. We feel so disillusioned about making any input because we have been told or socialized or conditioned to believe that the way for a youth to behave is to not suggest alternative ideas, is to just sit down and listen, is to be obedient even when you know you are right on a particular subject matter. I mean, especially when it is in contention with that of a gray-haired person or a bald-haired person. So young people must realize that we have power. What is this power that we have? Our energy, our exuberance. More often than not, we are made to believe or feel that our energy and our exuberance constitute its advantages. But they are not. They are actually our strength. That's something that we have. That's our elder generation, the bald heads and the gray heads don't have. And to be able to move our country forward, or to be able to move our society from one point of civilization to the other, we need that energy. The construction of our bridges, the construction of railway lines, that of roads, the lifting of, how do we call it, metals, precious metals from one point to the other, turning them into value-added products. All of that requires energy. So these are things that we have. What other things do we have as young people? How does, those things inure to our benefit? We are young. That's one thing that nobody should take away from us. And the fact that we are young simply means that we have time to make our own mistakes. The fact that we are young means that we have the space to learn. We have the space to understand our environment. So if you're a young person and you want to behave like a 90-year-old, you're a fake youth. And this is where I want us to have that consensus. What happened, for instance, at KNUST was a manifestation of youth. But more than that, it was also a manifestation of what the Constitution of Ghana enjoins all young people to do when faced with oppression. So one of the things that we need to understand is that our energy, our exuberance, and the age has not been deposited in us for nothing. It is for a purpose. It is to resist oppressors' rule. It is to resist exploitation. It is to free ourselves and free society and free others and build a prosperous society. So all of these things constitute some of the power that young people need to address their minds to. And I can tell you for a fact, no single army or the combined, effort of the police, the migration, prisons, army, all of them combined, can face the power of the youth if, young people are very much aware of the power that they have and the stake they have in driving, social change in our society. I think that beyond the realization or the recognition that we have power, one, with our numbers, two, with our exuberance, three, with our age and all of that, is also the need for unity. if we don't unite, if we don't come together, if we don't at one point in time engage on the needs of our society, our own needs, our material conditions and all of that, I'm telling you, the realization of the power we have will just remain there. It will be futile. So there's a need for unity. And every generation in this country, of young people have at one point in time, after realizing their power, united to fight for a cause. The Kwame Nkrumah generation is one critical example, where young people then, after engaging amongst themselves and identifying what kind of society that they lived in, came to one simple conclusion, that okay, we live in a system called colonialism. Then the question was, do you want this colonialism to be abolished, or you want it to stay? So it was a question of when. A part of that generation said, we want it to be abolished now. Another part of that generation said, no, we want it in the shortest possible time. In the end, I think we all know what happened of that. When Kwesi Pratt, Kweku Bakun, Rollins and Co. were in the street screaming, let the blood flow, that was a generational call. It was a unity action that brought them together. They saw how corrupt their, the political leadership of the time was, and they felt that there was the need to come together and do something about it. So every generation in this country has actually converged at one point in time to have some of these discussions amongst themselves. So there was a point of unity. It would appear that we are the only generation that is delaying in having this conversation. What kind of society do we live in? What kind of system is this? When do we want to change it? That's if we want to change it at all. Our generation is yet to have that conversation, and it's important that we begin to converge. And I'm happy with organizations like the Economic Freedom Fighters of Ghana emulating, what is happening all over across the continent. And all over across the continent, young people are engaging. Young people are taking serious decisions. And even outside the continent, Macron is my age mate. He's president of a whole country. But here in this country, I'm supposed to be a youth. I'm not entitled to file my nomination for president. There's something wrong. We need to engage, in some of these things. Our country cannot continue to suppress the most powerful constituency in the country and think it will prosper economically and even politically. Our country cannot continue to do that. But it lies with all of us in deciding whether we want the system or we don't want it. The other point that I need to make has to do with, yes, our coming together, which signifies our unity. But unity of what? We need to have something in our heads. We need to unite around the subject matter. And that can only come through knowledge. So we need to understand what has happened before, this time. And that would mean our history. A lot of the times we are not very much interested in history. And any attempt to recount, the history of this country and who did what is a very boring subject. It's like, once again, they are talking about the past. Yes, I can agree, maybe it's the way they put it. But under no circumstance should we be put off in knowing and understanding exactly what has taken place before us. Because it is by that understanding that we would be able to understand our present conditions and then know how to move forward, in directing our future. I won't stay long there. The last question for me, or point, has to do with taking action. We talk too much. Look, there have been many WhatsApp groups established, there have been many organizations established, and what do? Anytime they meet, it is talk, talk, talk. That's even when they get to meet. Sometimes even meeting itself constitutes an action so difficult that it won't happen. I can imagine that probably on your WhatsApp groups, I mean, you may have the numbers on your Facebook, I mean, page. I know the number of likes is not commensurate with the number of people seated here at this time. So action appears to be missing amongst us in our generation. And if we really want to cause that change, if we really want to, I mean, bring about that social change that we are all looking for, then maybe anytime we finish talking, we need to ask ourselves, so what is the action? Or anytime we are talking, we need to ask ourselves, why am I talking in the first place? It must be directed towards an action. Where there is no action in sight, then we are just talking for nothing. And I don't think that we want to waste any more time or any further time in just doing the talking. I remember this year, my organization, the Economic Fighters League, decided to fight for young people. We asked the simple question of how many young people have roof over their heads? How many young people have jobs? How many young people can afford to say that this year I am getting married? How many young people can say that? I visited my grandfather some time ago in his village, and here is an old man who lived in about a 19-bedroom house, very big house. And when I asked him from inquisition, I got to know that he put up that house when he was around between 25 and 27. And I'm asking myself, today, I mean, let's be realistic, how many young people can boast of a 2-bedroom house? And even those young people who have a 2-bedroom house to their names, what do we call them, if not Sakawa? So we are talking about the generation that has been denied the most. A generation, don't worry, a generation that has been shortchanged the most. A generation that has been the most cheated. They've cheated us so much that even our power of imagining a mere 2-bedroom house has become so impossible. So what are we waiting for? And this underscores the last point that I have made. The need for us to take action.